Welcome to Manhwa Reader Recap, where I read you your favorite manhwa so you don't have to reread them. Subscribe for bite-sized recaps every week. Now, let's get started.
In a quiet hospital ward, a middle-aged man sits by his sick son's bedside, holding the boy's hand tightly. His voice trembles as he mutters, "My son, I've come to see you one last time." Life has been cruel to him and his family throughout his 15 years of marriage. He had always believed they could endure the hardships and climb their way back up from the bottom. But reality has only grown heavier. His eldest son's hospital bills have already piled up to 20 million won. On top of that, he owes damages for a car accident he caused while swerving to avoid a drunk woman. His manuscripts keep getting rejected, and even his once resourceful wife is growing weary. Both of them are exhausted. Tonight, they made a devastating decision to end it all and find peace. With a trembling voice, he asked his wife if he could go first. Shaken but composed, she reassured him she would follow soon after, urging him not to lose his resolve. When he asked about their youngest son, who was sleeping peacefully, she assured him she would bring him along gently. His hands shook as he lifted the cup. Fear etched across his face. He was ready to drink, but then he caught a glimpse of his wife's expression and hesitated. Slowly, he brought the cup back to his lips again. But this time, her expression twisted into something terrifying. She bit her lip, and a faint smirk flickered across her face. Terrified, he lowered the cup, sobbing that he couldn't go through with it. Her composure shattered. She stood abruptly, her voice rising with fury as she demanded to know what he was doing. Snatching the cup from him, she tried to force it to his mouth, shouting that he must drink it. He cried and begged her to stop, but her grip on his hands only tightened, her fingers digging painfully into his skin. He struggled, screaming at her to stop. The cup slipped from their hands and shattered on the floor, spilling its contents as they both collapsed, panting. She screamed at him, "We've made up our minds. Why are you still hesitating? What are we supposed to do now? Living like this will only make us more miserable," she yelled again, her voice breaking. Through his tears, he choked out, "I can't do it. Please, let's try to live again." They both sobbed, clinging to each other as the weight of their despair crushed them. Sleeping in his taxi, Park Yong-ho was startled awake when a man in a tailored suit and hat suddenly entered. Surprised, he told the man he was off duty and advised him to take another cab. But the stranger, smiling oddly, insisted, "Since I'm already inside, why not just go?" As they drove through the quiet streets, Yong-ho studied the man more closely. He was older, with white hair and a beard, dressed in a crisp white suit and red tie. In his hand, he carried a black and gold cane. Without warning, the old man spoke. "Money ruined everything for you." Startled, Yong-ho frowned. "What do you mean?" The man's voice was calm, almost pitying. "Life has been miserable for you from the start, but don't ever throw your life away over money again." Confused and unsettled, Yong-ho slammed on the brakes. "Who the hell are you? How do you know about my life?" he shouted. The old man simply lifted his cane and pointed it at him. "Do you need money?" Yong-ho hesitated, torn between suspicion and desperation. At last he whispered, "Yes, I need it." "Then turn the car around," the man said smoothly. "I'll take you somewhere that will change your life." It felt reckless, insane even, but something in the man's presence compelled him. Deciding to gamble, Yong-ho followed the stranger's directions. They stopped in front of a crumbling, shady-looking building. "This must be crazy," Yong-ho thought as he trailed the man up a dim staircase. "Following some old stranger here. What could I possibly gain from this?" Just then, the man stopped and announced, "We're here." Yong-ho looked up. Before them stood a luxurious door, gleaming with gold trim. Above it, the words Apollo Savings Bank were engraved. "This is where they'll take care of you," the old man said. Uneasy, Yong-ho protested. "I have terrible credit. I can't take loans." The man chuckled. "Don't worry. This isn't an ordinary bank." He opened the door, revealing a grand passage lined with numbered doors. That strange smile never left his lips as he gestured. "Window number 1 is available." Good luck, Yong-ho turned to ask another question, but the old man had vanished. Shaking, sweat forming on his brow, Yong-ho decided to step inside. A man with a calm, soothing smile greeted him at the counter. "How may I help you today?" Nervously, Yong-ho muttered, "I'm here for a loan. Please provide your ID," the clerk requested politely. Handing it over, Yong-ho watched as the clerk typed swiftly. To his shock, everything felt real. This man looked and acted like an ordinary banker. "Mr. Park Yong-ho," the clerk finally said, "you are eligible for a loan of 950 million won. That's approximately 675,000 US dollars. Yong-ho's mouth dropped. "Did I hear that right?" "Would you like to withdraw the full amount?" the clerk asked. Panicked, he stammered, "Do I have to?" "Not at all," the clerk assured him. "You may withdraw only a portion if you prefer." After a long pause, desperation won. "No," Yong-ho said firmly. "I'll take it all." "Every last one," the clerk's smile widened. Suddenly worried, Yong-ho asked, "But I don't have collateral." "That won't be necessary," the clerk replied smoothly. "All we need is your signature." Yong-ho froze. This deal is too good to be true. There must be a catch. But if I sign, all my problems disappear. "Do you accept the loan?" the clerk pressed gently. After a moment's hesitation, Yong-ho grabbed the pen. "Yes, I'll take it." As the ink dried, a thought gnawed at him. "Why would you lend so much to someone with my credit?" The clerk's expression sharpened. "Mr. Park, do you not realize where you are?" Confused, he shook his head. "Your current balance is 4,325,531, the clerk said calmly. "But Apollo Savings Bank doesn't assess your past. We track your future account balance on a yearly basis. This year, you will receive 1 billion won. Cold sweat trickled down Yong-ho's face. "What? How could you possibly know that? What if it never happens?" "I'm afraid I can't reveal the specifics," the clerk replied firmly. "Regulations forbid it. But what you must understand is this. Apollo Savings Bank allows clients to withdraw against their future earnings, minus a 5% advance fee. That is the service we provide." Yong-ho's mind raced. 1 billion won this year? How? From a writing contest? A film deal with Netflix? None of this makes sense. But he pushed the thoughts aside. With this money, he could finally pay his son's hospital bills, settle his debts, cover rent, and escape the crushing weight of his life. Later that night, he stopped at an ATM to confirm. Slipping in his new card, he held his breath as the screen loaded. Balance, 949,970,000 won. After receiving the money, life began to change for Park Yong-ho. With nearly 1 billion won at his disposal, his family's hardships seemed to vanish overnight. When his wife asked where the money had come from, he told her about Apollo Bank. She didn't question him further. The money was like an elixir of life for the family. Their eldest son, who had been terminally ill, underwent surgery, miraculously surviving thanks to the funds that paid for it. After the operation, Yong-ho's account balance read 743,580,000 won. Soon after, they moved into a decent apartment. His balance now 193,580,000 won. His wife smiled again. He paid off the loan sharks, cleared his bank debts, and erased his bad credit. His wife asked once more if there was truly no risk with this loan. He reassured her, telling her not to worry. "We'll know by the end of the year," he said softly. Looking at her, he told her he knew how hard things had been for her all this time, and now she didn't need to struggle anymore. But instead of relief, she looked at him strangely. He even bought a mid-sized car for the family. For a while, he lived without worry. But when mid-September arrived, unease began to gnaw at him. The employee at Apollo Bank had said the money would come this year, but not when. Maybe tomorrow, maybe 2 months later, maybe even on the very last day of the year. Still, nothing had happened. His synopsis to Netflix was rejected, and the only money he'd earned so far was 700,000 won from selling a short story to a magazine. His wife continued working in insurance. At first, he had felt anticipation. Now, as each day passed, the anticipation curdled into fear. How am I supposed to earn 1 billion won by the end of the year? A few days later, after returning from a long run, he picked up the mail waiting outside their apartment. Among the envelopes was a letter that made his hands tremble. It was an insurance document his wife had taken out for their son, worth exactly 1 billion won. Heart pounding, he rushed inside and confronted her. "When did you take this out? Are you hoping our son dies?" His wife froze, then snapped back. She explained she had gotten the policy when their son was hospitalized, when there was no hope left. "It's no different from the life insurance you bought when we decided to end everything," she said coldly. "Don't say such unlucky words again." Though shaken, Yong-ho insisted their son was healthy now, even attending school again. But inside he was rattled. Exactly 1 billion won. He tried to convince himself it was only coincidence. His wife looked at him with disgust. "Don't ever say something like that to me again." "I'm sick of it," she said on her way out to work. Left alone, Park Yong-ho was disturbed, unable to shake the thought. He kept denying it, whispering to himself that it meant nothing. Maybe it wasn't insurance. Maybe he'd win the lottery instead. Yes, if he won 1 billion won after tax, that would explain it. That had to be the only possibility. The next day, Park Yong-ho withdrew some money and went to a lottery shop. As he stared at the rows of tickets, he kept wondering how many he would need to buy to win, and how ridiculous it was to think that his son's life was at stake. He tried to consider other possibilities, but anxiety gnawed at him. Something felt inevitable, as if fate were circling closer. Lost in thought, he suddenly heard a voice. "Dad!" It was his son, Suman, across the street, waving cheerfully while riding his bike. Yong-ho forced an awkward smile and called back, relieved to see him. Suman pedaled over, grinning, explaining why he was late today. Then, in an instant, a truck came roaring down the road. Suman was already in its path. Yong-ho's heart lurched into his throat. He screamed his son's name and sprinted forward. His legs felt heavy, the world moving too slowly. Suman fell to the ground, and by a miracle the truck swerved at the last second, missing him by inches. Shaking, Yong-ho rushed to his son's side, checking frantically for injuries. "I was careless," Suman admitted, brushing dust from his clothes. Still trembling, Yong-ho hugged him tightly. Thank God you're safe." That night, the fear refused to leave him. He was now certain, whether by disease or accident, the promise of receiving 1 billion won meant Suman's life was in danger. Horrified, he tore the insurance certificate into pieces. The thought tormented him. Had he bought a home, a car, and celebrated with money that belonged to his child's death? A desperate idea struck him. If I go back to Apollo Bank, I can find out who the depositor of that 1 billion won is. Then I'll know the truth. Grabbing his phone, he searched for the bank's number. "This number does not exist," the automated voice replied. He remembered what the teller had said. Heart pounding, he decided to return to the old building, determined to confront an employee or anyone who could explain. Climbing the familiar staircase, dread settled over him. But when he reached the top, his stomach dropped. The building was empty. Apollo Savings Bank had vanished without a trace. That night, Yong-ho sat in silence across from his wife, finally telling her everything. His voice cracked as he broke down, confessing that he needed to find the strange old man with the crooked smile. He cursed himself for not asking his name, his address, anything. Tears streamed down his face as he muttered over and over, "Suman will die. Suman will die." His wife suddenly stood and slapped him hard across the face. Stunned, he blinked, her sharp voice cutting through his panic. "Pull yourself together," she shouted. "This is exactly when you have to be strong. You're the head of this household. Act like it." Her words anchored him. The trembling slowed. He took a deep, shaky breath. She was right. He had to hold himself together. For his son, for his family. The scene shifts. Park Yong-ho stands in a dimly lit office. The stench of cigarettes and alcohol heavy in the air. On the floor beside him, a middle-aged man kneels with his head bowed low, humiliated, while 4 gangsters look on. At the center of the room sits their boss, a thick-set man with sharp eyes and a cruel grin. He studies Park Yeon for a moment before speaking. "You're Kim Ji-yeon's husband?" Yong-ho swallows hard and nods. "Yes." The boss leans back, amused. "Your wife gave you my card, even knowing what kind of business I run?" Young-ho hesitates, then admits, "Yes." A laugh bursts out of the gangster. "She looks gentle, but she's bolder than I thought, sending her own husband to me." His eyes narrow. "Do you even know what I do?" "I know," Young-ho replies quietly, closing his eyes as if bracing himself. Then forcing the words out, he says, "I need 1 billion won." The gang boss throws his head back and laughs. 1 billion? Can you even pay that back in this lifetime? "I'll repay it every month," Young-ho says firmly. The room falls silent for a beat, then erupts in mocking laughter from the gangsters. But the boss notices something in his expression, a stubborn determination. He leans forward smirking. "You understand what that means, right?" He gestures to the man kneeling on the floor, whose trembling body says more than words ever could. Fear flashes across Young-ho's face, but he steadies himself. "I understand." The boss grins wider, sliding a contract across the table. "The interest will crush you," he warns. "I'll pay it," Young-ho says without hesitation. That's how he borrows from loan sharks, signing himself into a nightmare. The deal demands 25 million won in interest every month, due on the 10th. It's a trap, but he doesn't care. Because for Park Young-ho, there's something more important than money, his family. The story rewinds. After his wife screamed at him not to return unless he found the man in the suit, Park Young-ho wandered the city restlessly. His mind churned with dread. Then, by some strange twist of fate, he spotted the familiar figure, the old man with the odd smile, calmly watching a chess game in the park. Without thinking, Park Yeon rushed over and grabbed him by the collar. The old man looked startled at first, but quickly relaxed when he recognized him. "Talk to me," Young-ho demanded, his voice breaking. "You have to explain." "My son, Suman, he could die because of this." The old man didn't flinch. His smile lingered as though none of this was new to him. "Calm down," he said softly. "Finding me again is your luck. Don't waste it by hurting me." But Young-ho shook with anger, gripping his collar tighter. "My child's life is at stake." The old man sighed, then spoke more deliberately. "Listen carefully. If you repay the borrowed money early, within the contract period, then the future incident disappears." Young-ho froze, eyes widening. "What?" The man chuckled, mocking him. "So you really didn't read the terms and conditions, did you?" "What are you talking about?" "The rule of Apollo Bank is simple," the man explained, still smiling. "If a customer puts the borrowed money back into their account midway, it is automatically treated as full repayment. The deal ends there. But," he leaned closer, his eyes glinting, "the customer also pays the price for glimpsing the future." Park Yeon's heart pounded. "Then, what about the 1 billion won that's supposed to come by the end of the year?" "It will vanish," the man replied casually, as if it never existed. Young-ho's mouth went dry. "So, all of it, gone?" The old man nodded, his smile sharpening. "Yes, but here's the problem. You don't know what kind of money that 1 billion won is. It could come from something good, or from something terrible. If it's good, then repaying early is a loss. But if it's bad, repaying early eliminates the misfortune before it happens." He leaned even closer, his voice dropping low, almost like a whisper. "If you repay now, at that moment, your son definitely won't get sick or die. But if that money truly comes from your son's death..." He let the words hang in the air like poison. Park Yeon trembled. The old man straightened, patting his shoulder lightly. "That's why you are lucky, Mr. Park. You've been given a choice. The decision is yours." At home that night, his wife Yeon listened quietly as he relayed the old man's words. She folded her arms, her eyes hard. "Then the answer is obvious," she said firmly. "If there's even a chance it's tied to Suman's death, can we really gamble on anything else? Do we have another choice?" Gi's voice was cold and steady. "There's only one way left. You must raise 1 billion won and deposit it into the account before the end of the year. When you do, everything will vanish. The money we were supposed to receive, Suman's illness, his death, even the insurance payout. All of it." Park clung desperately to one last hope. "But what if that money doesn't come from Suman's death? What if it comes from somewhere else?" His wife cut him off sharply. "Why are you hesitating? You already know the truth." Her words struck him like a hammer. Deep down, Park realized his fear came from his conviction that the money was tied to his son's death. Gee's voice hardened. That money could never have come from anything good. If it reached us, it would only be from Suman's insurance payout. Now go there. She handed him a card. It bore the name of a place disguised as a car wash, but everyone knew it was really a loan office. You want me to borrow money? From them? Park asked weakly. Her eyes flashed. Is the interest rate what scares you right now? When your son's life is at stake? He said nothing, and for the first time, Park knew she was right. The story cuts back to the present. Park thought of his wife's words. Despite the crushing weight of interest that would follow him forever, at least his child would live. Better debt than death. He had chosen stability over despair. He returned home with the loan approval contract. Gee looked up, her luggage stacked neatly by the door, and asked bluntly, "Did you borrow it?" Wordlessly, Park handed her the document. He froze when he noticed her and the children packed to leave. "Where are you going?" he asked. "To Gangneung," she said simply. "Gangneung? Why?" Her eyebrows rose in mild disbelief. "You didn't even remember?" "Today is my father's birthday." The children gathered near the door. Gee opened it, telling them brightly, "Let's go greet your grandfather." "Mom, what about Dad?" Suman asked. "Your father will join us next time," she said firmly. Their little daughter Sunmi burst into tears. "I don't want to go without Dad. I want to play with him." Park knelt, wiping her tears. "I'll come tomorrow, sweetheart. We'll take the train together, see the sea, and play ball." "I promise," Sunmi sniffled, then nodded. Park turned to Suman, his voice heavy. "Be mature, son. Take your medicine. Look after your sister." After the farewells, Gee looked at him once more. "The money will come this week. Pay it back immediately. Call me once it's done." Park opened his mouth to reply, but only managed a broken, "Guy." She cut him off gently. "I'll be back later." Then she left with the children. Alone in the empty apartment, Park's thoughts churned. Only one day remained. 1 billion would soon arrive. His son's life would be saved, but the money would transform into a crushing debt. He calculated desperately. Even if he sold their lease and the car, he'd still owe 400 million won. Still, he consoled himself. What was debt compared to his son's life? The hours dragged as he waited for the promised deposit. He stared at the clock. 5 o'clock, the appointed time. But nothing came. Only a meaningless text notification. Park roared in frustration. Why hasn't the money arrived? Doubt stabbed through him. Had he trusted the loan shark too easily? Before he could answer his own question, he was ambushed from behind. A brutal chokehold crushed his throat. Park clawed and kicked, terror exploding in his chest. Why was the loan shark attacking him? He struggled desperately, thoughts spiraling. Am I going to die like this? What about my family? His life ebbed, his vision dimmed. In those final moments, memories of his wife's words surfaced. The argument over insurance, the strange contract, the rule of Apollo Bank. And then the horrific truth slammed into him. The 1 billion wasn't tied to his son's death. It was tied to his own. Relief, bitter and sharp, welled up in him. If he died, Suman would live. With the last of his strength, he whispered his son's name and smiled faintly. Suddenly, Park gasped awake. Blood stained his hands. Beside him lay the loan shark, Gwangho, a knife buried in his chest. Park's mind spun in shock. What happened? Did I kill him? His phone rang. He answered, stammering to explain, but froze as he heard a familiar voice. Not his wife, but a news broadcaster, memory echoing. Suman choked to death on a rice cake his grandmother gave him? The world collapsed. The funeral was suffocating in its silence. Park stood motionless before his son's altar, clutching a blood-stained emblem in his pocket, unable to comprehend its meaning. His wife, Gee, collapsed, wailing as relatives gathered around her, urging Park to step aside. He watched, numb, excluded from her grief. He bent down and picked up Gee's phone, dropped in her despair. The screen lit with a family photo, smiling faces, warmth, happiness. His chest cracked with pain as he wept bitterly. Then notification appeared. Multiple profiles. Driven by a terrible instinct, he opened it. Park's body stiffened. His wife's secret conversations spilled out. The profile picture of one chat participant stopped his breath. Gwang-ho. His eyes widened as he scrolled. Messages, plans, betrayal. Her urging Gwang-ho not to back down. Her telling him Park was home, clearing the path for murder. His promise, "I'll take the $1 billion from the insurance." Her reply, "Hurry." Park reeled, his mind refusing to accept the words his eyes consumed. The scene shifted. Another time, another place. Gi lay in Gwang-ho's bed. She whispered to him, "Kill my husband." He frowned, uneasy. "Isn't this too much?" Meeting like this was already dangerous. Gi's voice was steady, persuasive. "He has strange money from the future. That money is cursed, linked to Suman's death. Lend me enough to repay it." Now Gwang-ho snorted. "I'm not your wallet." Her eyes gleamed. She revealed her plan. "I've bought life insurance for my husband. 1 billion won. If we kill him after repaying the debt, we'll collect the payout. Clean. Simple." He stared at her, stunned. "Are you insane? Why should I risk everything?" Gi leaned close, her voice a whisper of poison. "Because then, I'll be yours. Forever." Gwang-ho hesitated, suspicion clouding his eyes. "No matter how I look at it, I'll be the one who loses." Gi retorted, resentful of his loser description, saying he could sleep beside her whenever he wished. There was no escape for him. She continues to persuade him that there will be no annoying debts or a useless husband, adding that it's time to switch. The scene returns to the present at Suman's funeral. Park enters the room and asks Yeon's family to step aside for a moment, indicating that he has something to talk about with Yeon. Park stands sternly before Yeon, who looks at him in fear. At that moment, he throws her phone down beside her, displaying her conversation with Gwang-ho. After connecting all the dots thanks to the messages he read, Jeon understands that he knows the truth, and she tries to explain what happened, but can find no words to justify her actions. Park explodes in rage and attacks Jeon, choking her while screaming at his wife, accusing her of conspiring with that scoundrel to kill him. Park continues to choke his wife, Ji, violently, as his words hang like a hammer, repeating the cry, "Die!" His eyes were filled with hatred as he accused her of being the one who killed their son. Jeon struggles desperately, gasping and begging him to stop. Suddenly, men burst into the place and interrupt the scene, forcing Park to stop and look at them in confusion, wondering who they are. One of the men identifies himself as being from the Seongbuk police station and shows his official ID issued by the National Police Agency. Then in a formal tone, the officer informs Park Yun-ho that he is under emergency arrest on suspicion of murdering a man named Kim Gwang-ho. Park's eyes widen in shock and horror, as does his wife's, who watches the scene with bulging eyes. Park mutters in disbelief, wondering if he is really a murder suspect. The officer explains that they received a report from a witness and asks for his cooperation with the investigation. As Park stands speechless, amidst the funeral hall filled with white wreaths, the officer begins to read him his rights. He tells him he has the right to an attorney, an opportunity to explain his side of the story, and to request a review of his detention order before a court. Another officer steps forward and puts handcuffs around his wrists. As he is being led away, Park gets lost in his thoughts, insisting to himself that he did not kill Gwang-ho. His memory flashes back to that day, and he is overwhelmed by a deep sense of regret, wishing he had died instead of Suman. In a flash, an image from the crime scene appears before him, Gwang-ho's body and a blood-stained metal emblem lying on the floor. His eyes widen in a sudden realization as he remembered that emblem well. It was the same emblem that was on the badge of the bank employee, Kim Sang-sang. Driven by this shocking discovery, Park makes a desperate decision. He lunges towards a pot of boiling soup and throws it in the faces of the officers, who scream in pain. Taking advantage of the chaos, he runs away, as the officers scream behind him and order his capture. 1 month after that incident, after Park spent his days drowned in grief and hatred over the loss of Suman, the scene shifts to another location. An old client appears sitting in front of the bank employee, Kim Sang-sang. The old man asks the employee if his papers are ready, and the employee replies in the affirmative. The old man expresses his astonishment at the idea of being able to receive money from the future in advance, describing it as unbelievable, then asks when he will know the result. The employee explains that he needs to return to his office to enter the documents and perform the necessary calculations, and that he will be able to contact him the next day. The old man asks him to take care of it, and the employee reassures him and tells him he has an appointment with another client. Now the employee Kim Sang leaves after giving the old man his business card and steps out into a street drenched in heavy rain. As he walks under his umbrella, he is suddenly attacked by a mysterious person in a hood who grabs him violently by the collar. Kim Sang asks his attacker in terror why he is doing this. The attacker reveals his face, and it turns out to be Park Yun-ho, who holds up the blood-stained Apollo Bank emblem and asks him sarcastically if he remembers it. The events flash back to the past, where another man wearing glasses appears nervous as he walks down a dark alley, searching for something in vain. The scene shifts to the moment of the struggle between Park and Gwang-ho, where Kim Sang and another employee appear after Park has lost consciousness, and the other employee stabs Gwang-ho. Gwang-ho was trying to resist them, but his strength was fading quickly, and in an attempt to fend them off, he rips the metal emblem from his suit. Gwang-ho falls to the ground. After they are sure he is eliminated, Kim Seong orders the other man with glasses to withdraw, and they leave the scene. Park is left next to Gwang-ho's body. He notices something lying on the floor next to Gwang-ho's hand, amidst a pool of blood. It is the Apollo Bank badge. The man realizes he made a grave mistake by leaving such a clue behind, and he is seized with terror, turning around as he feels something following him. The man rushes back to the building, panting in fear, and quickly climbs the stairs to apartment number 403. After entering the apartment and making sure no one is there, he breathes a sigh of relief. He takes out his phone and tries to call a number saved as assistant Kim Sang, but the call goes straight to voicemail, and the man curses angrily. The man hears the sound of footsteps in the building's hallway and looks anxiously through the peephole, but he sees no one outside. Suddenly, his phone rings and he jumps. The caller is team leader Park Jung-mong. The man answers the call, and the team leader scolds him for not answering and for wandering around with his location tracker turned off, reminding him of the rules of the Aro organization. The man replies with a trembling voice that he has just arrived home. Then, in a voice filled with terror, he tells his leader that the ghost has appeared. The leader asks incredulously, "A ghost?" As he listens in terror, he looks through the peephole again, and the ghost in question appears. Who is the mysterious old man holding the golden Apollo Bank emblem and smiling eerily, saying, "Bingo"? On the other end of the phone, the man with glasses, Woo Jung-wook, mutters the word, "Maestro!" in terror. The team leader shouts through the phone, but at that moment, something passes through the peephole, piercing Woo Jung-wook's head. The scene shows Woo Jung-wook lying dead on the floor, his eyes open in eternal shock. The leader calls his name, demanding an answer. Meanwhile, the mysterious old man, the maestro, calmly leaves the building, humming a tune before letting out a faint, sinister laugh. Elsewhere, Park continues to confront the bank employee, Kim Sang, accusing him and his men of killing the loan shark. Sang calmly asks Park to let him go, but Park insists on knowing how the bank can predict people's futures. Sang-sung replies that this is a special system of Apollo Savings Bank. Park's anger flares, and he claims that Sang-gong knew his son was going to die. Sang tries to feign surprise and sorrow upon hearing the news of the son's death. Park is not fooled and presents his theory. The old man lured him to the bank, and then the bank killed his son to get the insurance money, accusing them of meddling with his family's fate. At the mention of the old man, Sang-gong's expression changes. He grabs Park's wrist with surprising force, causing Park to cry out in pain. Song asks seriously how Park found the bank. Park admits while in pain that an old man got into his taxi and told him about the place. Song presses further, asking if this old man was carrying a cane with writing on it. Park remembers the image of the old man and his cane in his car. Sung realizes the gravity of the situation and tells Park that he should have taken him earlier. Before Park can understand what he means, Sang attacks him, throws him forcefully to the ground, and pulls out a cloth soaked in a chemical on his face. Park quickly loses consciousness while Sang-shong reassures him that he will wake up soon. Park tries to resist with all his might, but to no avail. Suddenly, a truck appears and speeds towards them. The truck crashes, creating a huge mess, leaving behind a cloud of dust and debris amidst the collision. Park slowly regains consciousness and stands in a daze where he finds Kim Sang-sang dead amidst the wreckage. Park approaches him, but he stands nervously, not knowing how he should act in that situation. Amidst the wreckage of the accident, Park sees in shock the truck driver moving in front of him. The driver headed towards the briefcase that Kim Sang-sang was carrying, then picks it up and heads towards Park with it. The driver, his face covered in blood, warns Park about the Arrow organization, saying they will manipulate him to achieve their goals. Park screams in confusion and terror. The driver gives the briefcase to Park and adds a final astonishing message. If Park meets the leader of Arrow, Park Jang-mong, then his son Sunmi can be saved. Then the driver falls to the ground dead. Disbelieving what he's hearing, he wonders in a trembling voice if saving Sunmi is really possible. The scene shifts to Woo Jung-wook's apartment, where leader Park Jang-mong is examining a crime scene photo. The photo shows the body of Woo Jung-wook, known to them as Jinik, and next to him, the word maestro is written in his blood on the floor as a final message. The leader deduces that Jinik left them a message before he died. He comments that the maestro was killed a long time ago, but has reappeared in this era. He confirms that their mission is to end the event in this era, and that Jin was assigned to monitor Park Yun-ho, and now a replacement must be found for him. When he examines Jin's bag, he adds that they have also lost contact with Kim Sang-sang. The leader suspects that the maestro is also behind Sang-sang's disappearance, and concludes that if that's the case, they must completely revise their plans. He takes Jinik's ID card and destroys it, declaring that Jinik's ALOS access card will be destroyed, which will cause the memories of the future to disappear. Meanwhile, Park is panting in the street, clinging to the hope planted by the driver's last words that Sumin can be saved when he spots police cars approaching. He quickly hides in an alley, holding on to the briefcase left for him. After the danger passes, Park enters his hideout, panting from exhaustion and shock, trying to process what just happened. In the dark hideout, painful memories assault Park's mind. Images of his happy family, his wife's betrayal, and his suffering flash before him before he collapses in despair. He quickly gathers his strength, focusing his gaze on the briefcase left for him. Park finds an iron bar and uses it to force the briefcase open. Park is surprised by what he finds inside. He discovers a sophisticated computer and an ID card for Kim Sang-sang, but it bears the name Joris above his real name. Park is puzzled by this strange name, wondering if Sang-sang was a foreigner. He continues to search the briefcase and finds a loan document in someone else's name, but more importantly, the name of the loan officer, Park Jang-mong. He also finds his business card identifying him as a branch manager. At this moment, Park clearly remembers the driver's words that meeting this man is the key to saving his son, Sumin, and hope ignites within him again. Using the information he found, Kim Sang's phone receives a call from Park Jang-mong. When Park answers, Park Jang-mong asks him about Kim Seong-seong, and Yang-mong replies by asking who the caller is. Park tells him directly that Kim Seong-seong is dead. Jang-mong is shocked and asks again who the caller is, and Park replies that he will reveal his identity if he agrees to meet him. Jang-mong eagerly asks if the briefcase is in Park's possession, and Park realizes its importance. Jung warns him not to tamper with it, saying it's not something people like him can handle. Park breaks down in desperation, insisting that he doesn't care about the briefcase or its contents. All he wants is to save his son. He pleads with him, saying he was told that Yang-mong could save him. Upon hearing the word son, Jang-mong realizes he is talking to Park Yun-ho. He suddenly tells him he will call him back and ends the call, leaving Park crying in frustration. In his car, Yang-mong thinks about the disaster that has befallen them, losing 2 agents in one day, making this event the worst in history. He blames the return of the maestro, whom he thought was dead. He decides he has no choice but to summon them and makes a phone call announcing that he is choosing the lesser of 2 evils. The scene suddenly jumps through time to April 14th, 1865 at Ford's Theater, where the 16th U.S. President Abraham Lincoln was watching a play. Someone appears behind him and points a pistol at his head. In another room, someone watches the scene with anticipation. A blonde man named Psyche and a mysterious woman watch the scene. Suddenly, the woman whispered the word bang as if she were anticipating the moment the shot was fired. If you enjoyed this recap, please like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss the next chapter. Thank you.